All right, so today we're looking at Australia's future, and it's really a story of two possible paths. On one hand, you've got this spiral of insane costs, wasted energy, and just growing inequality. But on the other hand, there's a pretty radical, sustainable solution on the table. So let's break it all down. So let's just start with a number, $1.2 million. Now, what is that? Well, believe it or not, that is what it costs the taxpayer to build a single public housing unit in a city like Sydney. Yeah, a single unit. At that price, trying to solve homelessness nationwide, it's not just a challenge. It's just mathematically impossible with the system we have right now. Okay, now here's another number for you. 7.2 terawatt hours. I mean, that's a huge number, right? Well, that's how much clean, renewable energy Australia just threw away in 1 year. We're talking enough power for millions of homes. Just gone. Poof. And why? Because our grid is so outdated, it literally can't handle the power we're generating. And look, don't just take my word for it. The Reserve Bank of Australia, the RBA itself, basically admits the whole approach is failing. They've said that current policies are just pumping up demand in a market that can't supply, which of course just jacks up prices even more. I mean, when the people in charge are telling you the system is broken, you know you've got a real problem on your hands. All right, so let's dive a little deeper into this. Section 1, a system at its breaking point. You know that classic Australian dream of owning your own home? It's pretty much on life support. Think about this. Historically, a house would cost you about 3 times your annual salary. Manageable, right? Well, today, that number has jumped to more than 10 times the average income. This isn't just some market dip or trend. It's a fundamental break. The link between working hard and having a secure place to live, it's been severed. So what we've really got here are two crises running in parallel. On one side, you have the housing crisis. The million-dollar units, practically zero vacancies, and waitlists that are years long. And on the other side, the energy crisis, where we're just dumping terawatt hours of clean power while the grid gets more and more unstable. And the key thing to realize is these two problems, they're not separate. They are deeply, deeply connected. And of course, this isn't just about economics or abstract numbers. There is a real, devastating human cost to all of this. We're seeing things like fathers becoming homeless after a separation because there's just nowhere to go. Nursing students are facing what's called placement poverty. They're doing critical, unpaid work for their degrees but can't afford a place to live. And for so many people without any assets, they're getting trapped in a cycle of what's being called digital slavery, just grinding away at repetitive online tasks just to survive. Okay, so it's a pretty grim picture, right? But what if there's another way to think about all this? This brings us to Section 2, the Walkabout Base Camp Solution. It's a really interesting idea, built on a strategy called the Regional Energy and Resilience Site Strategy, or to make it easier, RERSS. So what is a RESS base camp? Well, the idea is to stop trying to build those $1.2 million apartments. Instead, you create these decentralized, totally self-sufficient little communities. The concept is to take something like a campsite and transform it into a high-tech infrastructure asset, a hub that generates its own clean power, and then, and this is the genius part, uses the money from that power to pay for the shelter itself. And when you put the two approaches side by side, the difference is just staggering. I mean, look at this. Traditional development takes years, it consumes energy, and its revenue is all based on rent. The RESS Base Camp, on the other hand, can be up and running in a matter of months. It doesn't consume energy, it produces it. And its main source of revenue isn't rent, it's trading that energy on the open market. It's a total flip of the old model. And this really gets to the core of why this whole thing works financially. You see, the old way we calculated the cost of energy is just too simple for the modern grid. It completely ignores the cost of wasted power, what the industry calls curtailed energy. But here's the thing. That wasted energy isn't just a loss. It's actually a massive economic opportunity just waiting to be tapped. And that is exactly what RESS is designed to do, capture that value. Okay, so how does this actually become a sustainable economic engine? That brings us to Section 3, energy that actually pays for shelter. The absolute key to the whole financial model is something called the Unit A/Unit B model. It's a really clever legal and economic structure that basically separates the physical shelter from the asset that makes all the money. Think of it like this. Unit A is the shelter and the life support infrastructure. It's a cost center, right? It costs money to run. But Unit B? That's the energy asset. The solar panels, the batteries, that's a revenue engine. Unit B sells power to the grid, makes money, and then that income flows directly over to Unit A to subsidize or even completely cover the cost of living for everyone on the site. And the math behind it is surprisingly straightforward. The revenue you get from trading energy, plus a really small amount of rent, is designed to cover all the operational costs. And what does that mean? It means the entire site becomes financially self-sufficient. No more need for endless, ongoing government funding to keep it afloat. So, we've got a financial model that actually works on paper. But what does this really mean for the people it's designed to help? This is Section 4, From Exclusion to Empowerment. And this is where, for me, this idea gets really powerful. Because Recess isn't just some clever infrastructure project. It's actually designed as a human rights framework. It's a tangible, practical way to actually deliver on international agreements that Australia has already signed, agreements that recognize adequate housing as a fundamental human right. So how does it do that? Well, first, by providing secure, ultra-low-cost shelter, it decouples a person's basic survival from the need to accept exploitative labor. It breaks that digital slavery cycle we talked about. Second, during a disaster like a flood or a fire, these sites can switch to what's called island mode, becoming a totally self-powered, resilient sanctuary. And finally, it empowers up to 1.5 million people by turning them into what the model calls independent mobile agents. Basically, citizens who have a secure, stable base from which they can work, learn, and actually contribute to society. So what this really does is it completely redefines our whole concept of a home, right? It stops being a $1 million asset that traps you in debt and in one location. Instead, a home becomes a secure, mobile unit that can interact with this whole network of low-impact, highly efficient docking stations all around the country. It's about flexibility and security, not just speculation. And, the vision for this whole thing actually goes way beyond just Australia. Which brings us to our final section, a blueprint for peace. When you look at the model, you can see it's basically been engineered from the ground up to align with the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. It's not an accident. It's designed to directly tackle some of the world's biggest challenges, things like clean energy, sustainable cities, clean water, and of course, poverty. So the ultimate goal here is to perfect this system in Australia, prove that it works, and then export the blueprint, to treat it as an infrastructure of hope that could be deployed all over the world. A model that could provide power, water, and shelter to the more than 1 billion people currently living in slums globally. And by doing that, you're not just providing aid, you're addressing one of the root causes of global instability. And that really leaves us with a final, pretty pointed question, doesn't it? If we have the ability to engineer infrastructure that can export clean energy, clean water, and human dignity, then what exactly are we waiting for?